It's episode 14 of the Improv London podcast with this week's guest, Mark Johnson.
This ain't gonna be easy.
Somebody moving around.
Welcome to episode 14. I had a great time talking to Mark. Sorry, I just can't think of anything else to say. It's just the truth. I did have a great time talking to him. And we discussed lots of things, including his involvement with the Nursery's emotion play. We also talk about contact improvisation and viewpoints, and also what Mark has learnt from David Rosowski. Do enjoy.
I learned to improvise.
Wow, there's a big microphone there, and it's recording. Brilliant. Hey, Stuart. So, I've got a feeling I need to host this now. Stuart's gone.
I don't know why I've gone already. I was thinking that I'm not particularly at peace with my laugh. But if I had a particularly annoying laugh, then this podcast is just going to be a disaster because...
Congratulations, I've been told I have a ridiculous laugh.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, who has...
If we laugh together...
We will be all right.
Yeah.
Who has a cool laugh? It's like, that's a weird thing. It's
No
like,
one is properly laughing.
Exactly. That's it. Yes.
All hail the snorters.
Which I've discovered.
Yes.
Which I've discovered I do. Which I discovered on the podcast that I do.
Who was it you? Was that the one with Jack?
Yeah.
Oh. My goal for today, then, is to make you snort.
Well. So, before we started, you were saying that you had a theory about the Nursery.
Oh wow, we're getting there.
Straight in there.
No, I was saying one of the reasons why I love the Nursery, and to be honest, I think pretty much everything that I could say about improv would be covered by Jules's podcast that you did with him. It was great, and I just sat there nodding for most of it, except for the bits where he didn't talk about improv at all. Because far be it from the furor of the Nursery improv training centre to talk about improv on an improv podcast. No, I like so much of the things that interest me came across in that, and it's why I love it as a place. Is that there's a curiosity about the process of improv that is separate to the product, and they're tied together. But you look at like the Nursery originals, deliberately reaching out for different forms, different ways of presenting improv, and they give them a rehearsal process. They give those forms an opportunity to find themselves through process rather than kind of just saying, "Oh yeah, this is your form, go do." There's like when we did emotion play. The sense that we were kind of discovering the form along the way was really exciting and really kind of fueled the energy that we had. And I loved that the Nursery as a place and Jules as a person and Judith support and embrace that. It's great. I love it. The Nursery. Theatre.org. It's all right. They'll be in the show notes. I promise.
They will. They will be in the show notes.
I know. You do your great research, and I always look up your show notes.
I'm glad you look at the show notes.
I'm a big fan of this podcast.
I'm glad you're a big fan of this podcast. I'm also glad, I'm even slightly more glad that you do look up the show notes, because sometimes I think, oh, why am I doing this? And then I think, well, no, this is what I would want in a podcast.
Yeah,
I would want to know what the links are.
Although, to date this thing, what was the one you put out today?
It was Fran Bush of
Yes.
Kitten Killers and Norman fame.
Brilliant. In the show notes was a YouTube clip of
John Lewis advert.
of the artist
Oh, yes.
being present and the
Yes.
artist sitting there making eye contact
Yes.
with whoever wanted to come up and look.
Yes.
And I was kind of flicking through the show notes as I'm listening to the episode, and I start watching that YouTube clip, and then I get to the end of the podcast and I realise I don't know where that came. So either I fell asleep,
Which, as I said before, is a legitimate use of my podcast.
or I was potentially watching the YouTube clip at the moment the YouTube clip was on and missed its reference.
We just talked about something about sitting and seeing people and seeing an ex-partner or something like that.
That
was the artist we were talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
but we
yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
remember
yeah.
the name of the artist at the time. I could have perhaps made my show notes a little bit more clear.
I know it was perfectly clear. I can't remember you mentioning it in the podcast, and that's on me. I'm sorry.
I love how meta this podcast is getting.
Yeah, let's talk about all of them. Who else? Journeyman Mark Tyndall, which is not only mentioned in Mark Tyndall's, but in the Fran one as well. And now this one.
It's also mentioned in the Chris Mead episode as well, which I know you haven't heard yet, but it is.
Great.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, Mark. Is that like Jason Isaacs now?
Yeah, hello to Mark Tyndall, yes. Dear. Hello to Jason Isaacs. So, yes, you mentioned the Nursery originals. So
Yeah.
you're obviously part of that. For those that people didn't get the chance to see it, what was, if you had to explain it to somebody, how would you describe what that show was?
So the show Emotion Play was scenes improvised on the same patch of land as it may have existed throughout civilized history. So from the beginning of the I'm going to call it a play. From the beginning of the play, where the earliest scenes begin with kind of pre-Roman and Roman Britain, and the idea of a space on planet Earth is established, and the surrounding area and the landscape, each subsequent scene jumps forward to an entirely different time period, but in exactly the same place. The scenes build on the qualities of the scenes before them, so this idea that there's kind of an echo through time of the energy of a place was something that we hung on to, and that when it was really felt was really strong. So the suggestion that we took actually came out of Chris, the director, Chris Mead. The director would interview a person about an important place in their life. And did you get interviewed at one?
No, journeyman Mark Tyndall did.
That's right. Pardon me.
No, on the same night, I gave the suggestion for who were the blended life stars at the time.
That's right. That's why I'm thinking of it. Yeah.
Who are now the verbs?
Are they?
Yes.
Lovely. But from that discussion, from that little interview, kind of emotional themes and resonances kind of land with you. Some of them are really massive, like really brave stories being told in some cases. And what was amazing about that was that detail, although the facts and the specifics never necessarily filtered into the show, that clarity of emotion became that thread through the show, and God, it was wonderful. Yeah. To be involved in. I don't know how that, but they were, that God, imposter syndrome, that cast, my God,
It is a good cast,
amazing.
and you held your own.
Thank you very much. I'll take that. I have to. So some incredible improvisers and actors, although I wouldn't necessarily want to distinguish a difference. Just doing lovely work. That was amazing to watch it unfold and also to be in it. Except Jules was always mean to me in every scene I did with him. I think that may be now like a motif. Jules is a dick to me whenever we're in a scene together. That's fine.
Let's unpack that a little. Let's not.
Oh, I like it. It's great. It's great. I've never enjoyed being bullied more than by what was the scene? There was a really fun one where all I was trying to do was light a fire because no technology in the world existed because we were practically cavemen. And he was just being a dick to me about lighting a fire. And then he stamped it out as soon as I got it going. How was that? Yes, a hand. Come on.
Well, it's because he's beyond that now, you see. Yes, and is for beginners.
Stamp out this guy's fires where the pros are at. Yeah, it was great, and the subsequent ones have all looked amazing and continue. They're starting the new ones quite soon.
Yes, they are.
Brilliant.
So, you mentioned imposter syndrome. Is this something you feel in every aspect of your life, or is it mainly in performing?
Oh no, 100%. 100%, and that's all that needs to be said about that. Like, one of the wonderful things about the community that surrounds London Improv is that you get an opportunity to play with incredible people. Like as an art form, it encourages that, and as a community that exists, it's designed for that.
Yes.
So the fact that, like, you know, I could get up with Lauren or with Sally or with like John and Jules, and be a part of that just because I was around is amazing. And then, you know, so many places have jams where you kind of like the Jennyman Mark Tyndall's Duck Duck Goose, where you realise you're on stage with some just incredible people. That's slightly different though, because you don't realise that until you see them in the gig later. You go, "Oh my god,
they're in the thing!
Oh my god!" That's amazing fun. So I'll always walk out like I jammed with Alan Marriott.
Yeah,
like
I just got so excited I spilled tea all over myself.
You know, there's a lot of fun to be had, kind of giving in to imposter syndrome, and just like it's with me all the time, so I might as well just go up there and do it.
Yes, because you've actually only been improvising for a reasonably short time. So I would say this: a surprisingly short time for anyone that's seen you perform.
Wow. Okay. Yes and no, in that my training, my degree was in acting, so I've been a performer for a very long time, and that process, although for a lot of it fundamentally sits as process rather than performance, involves improvisation. There's not really God, this is going to make me sound like a twonk.
This is the material we want.
Yeah. Okay. So there aren't that many systems of training of actors that don't at some point get to improvisation.
Really?
You know, Stanislavski, boom, the king of it, ends up on improvisation, and the modern work that goes on in exploring his training is all about improvisation.
I didn't know that.
Meisner, everyone knows repetition. Further down the line, that repetition gives birth to improvisation. viewpoints, etc., etc., etc. There's improv in all of them, and so rehearsal processes, training practices, you find yourself improvising, and then post drama school, I ended up doing a bit of sketch comedy with some friends from my hometown who would write all the stuff, and I'd come in and
Take all the glory.
well, yes, clearly. No, they'd write really clever jokes,
Yeah.
and then I'd come in and say, and you know what would be really great is if you then tripped over on the way out.
Right. So you'd punch up their scripts.
I would do the fart gags.
Oh, really?
To these really clever scripts about Schrodinger's cat and things like that, and I'd come in and do like the physical comedy and put in a song and dance routine. And we went from just kind of booking ourselves out for sketch nights to booking a night in the middle of Surrey in a weird little place called Red Hill.
No, Red Hill.
Do you? Yeah. Of course, you're a Surrey guy. Sorry. Well, we're in Red Hill. We're booking this gig, and Red Hill is a horrible place in the middle of nowhere. And as often as not, we'd get a text. I guess there were texts back then. We'd get a message from the act saying, "So yeah, just worked out how long it would take to get there. I'm not coming."
Oh no.
And we'd get left with a room full of people and no material, or no act. And they'd already seen all of our stuff, so we used to just kind of throw up short form as an emergency measure, like just parachute in us doing Whose Line games.
Brilliant.
And so there was never anything formal about it. It was just a bunch of guys who knew each other really well, so knew how to pimp each other properly to play a game. And then stopped doing that like probably about 10 years ago. And then stopped acting completely for a chunk of time, about the same time. And yeah, New Year last year. So someone booked me onto Hoopla drop-in.
Really?
Because they wanted company.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, no, they and kind of landing at the right point. It was a bit of a life changer. I can't give it sole credit, although I can completely see where like discovering improv changes people's lives. But at that particular point, I was just starting to crackle with new intentions and kind of thinking this part of my life is not quite there yet. This part is feeling warm, and it just gives you an energy to start pursuing things properly. And I think by April I'd quit my job.
Really?
To go back to school. And so yeah, it's not all improv, but it helped.
Yes.
And so for last year I was improvising as much as I could, or at least improvising in workshops as much as I could. Didn't do a lot of performance.
And yet Jules didn't tell you off for that.
And yet Jules did not tell me off for that. Whereas he really chastised you, Stuart.
Hey.
Actually, funny enough, I think you were in the first at the Nursery workship I ever went to.
Oh, really?
It was a Carleen one.
Oh, right,
It was one of her Tuesday night drop-ins.
Yes.
And there was a sense... oh no! There was a sense then that this is Stuart. He's been here before. Like, oh, okay. This is a face I'm going to see around. Turns out she was right.
I don't remember her saying
No,
that.
it was just a palpable sense that Stuart's a mainstay. Stuart's a lifer. Stuart's in. Because it's when you go into something like that and there's and it's weird because when it's a drop-in, it's every time.
Yeah.
That sense of, okay, who's the cool kids? Who's the cool kid? Who knows the lay of the land? Who should I hide from? And what's lovely is that improv kind of dissolves that mentality.
Right. Yeah.
So many people but you don't know what their name is because you've spent the evening calling them something else entirely.
Yep.
You do know how quickly they might be inclined to jump to a Nazi joke just because a bunch of people would, or a poo gag. But yeah, the idea of who's the cool kid is suddenly bullshit.
Yeah.
Because everyone's just leaping up and doing whatever.
Carlene's drop-ins on Tuesdays, I really like them. And one of the things that's interesting about them is that you get quite a lot of people starting there. Yeah. I think it's through the meetup group and everything.
Yeah.
You can go along there, and the last time I went, Roderick, who I hope will be on, future guest on the show, was the only other person apart from Carlene out of 12 people that I'd met before. That's really interesting.
That's amazing and incredibly multicultural as well.
Yes.
Incredibly multicultural.
Yes.
And that presents its challenges.
Yes.
But it's also amazingly fun to be like surprised. I remember, I don't know if he still goes, but can you remember a French chap called Thierry?
Oh yeah, Thierry's still around.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I keep seeing him.
And like he would surprise me every time in a way that like okay, there's something about your worldview that is so completely different to mine that I would never in a million years see what's coming from you, and that's brilliant. I love it.
He's great.
And you get those every time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really fun drop-in. See through something, Tuesday night drop-in.
Yes, it's very good. You should go. It's very good. You like it.
Yeah.
Stuart, he's been around. Was that what she said?
No, of course it's not what she said. I'm sorry, I'm misquoting everyone. I'm saying there was a palpable sense that Stuart was a familiar face.
Yes, that is true.
That if you want to know where the bodies are buried, Stuart knows.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. I shall put that on the Edinburgh poster. The imaginary Edinburgh poster.
Go on. Do an Edinburgh show.
I haven't quite got to the comedian stage yet where I can start doing this as a live show.
No, not the podcast. Do an improvised show. Come on.
I'm having much more success with this than my improvisation, which I'm perfectly happy with. Any type of success is what I like.
Yeah.
So you did. So you did the drop-ins on Tuesday.
So I started dropping Monday.
Oh, Monday. With Steve.
The Hoopla one.
Yes.
And
I've never been to that because I'm never organised enough to book it far enough in advance.
That was why I ended up switching.
Yeah.
Because I would always go, I fancy doing some. Oh, it's sold out.
Yes.
Which is testament to how great they are.
Yes.
And 100%. If you've never done improv before,
yes,
that's the place to go.
Yes, definitely.
He is the king.
Yes.
Of lovely.
Yes. It's all about the love with Hoopla.
It's amazing. It's this underlying principle of a positive spirit is embodied by that man and that drop-in so much.
Yes.
That if I was sorted enough to book, I'd go all the time.
Yes.
But yeah, having kind of failed at booking, I was like, I need to do more of this. What else is there? And then the Nursery was literally the next one after a Monday was Tuesday. Tuesday follows Monday.
Nice.
And so okay, I'm in. I'll go. Done. And then I did that for a chunk. They're brilliant. And yeah, just like super focused work. It was really great. And then I think I jumped ship to Wednesday.
Yeah.
Partly because of continuity with people who are going. There's something about doing the drop-ins where having a whole bunch of new people is great, but then you start going, I want to see the same people again and again and again, and at the time, because I was contemplating quitting my job, couldn't afford to sign up for a Hoopla 8-week course. I was like, I can't commit. But knew that you and Christelle and Stephen, were finding this rhythm of going on a Wednesday, and that started doing the job.
Yeah, and the nice thing, it's a different thing, but the nice thing about the Wednesday class is that much as I love improvising with people who haven't improvised before, there are some times when you just want to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And I think that Wednesday class, I think you're just able to do that just because it's not people...
there's a different focus, but also from that depth, for me, always comes from that level of trust you build up with people. Like you could offer to go deeper with someone that you've never met before. Whether they will take that, it becomes hit and miss. But if you're in a room with a bunch of people who are kind of expressly there, to explore something else, and also brilliantly are familiar to you, then you get to play around loads. Yeah,
and if you have that trust, you can do things that you perhaps wouldn't, normally do. Example from Duck Duck Goose on Monday, I was doing a scene with Phil Dunn, who I'm also hoping will be a future guest, and our word was Bullet, and I made out that he was this kind of action hero called Bullet. Yeah. And so I started off kind of as a sergeant, major, general sort of thing, and then I ended up just sort of going around his back and just sort of giving him this massage and sort of taking the whole scene in like a different direction, which I might not have, if I didn't know Phil, I might not have felt comfortable doing, or I would have been comfortable.
Physical contact is an interesting one.
It is, isn't it?
In those, and weirdly, to call back to emotion play, it was something we, I think, very early on, addressed as just you acknowledge it, like, oh yeah, the stuff we're going to be talking about probably worth getting comfortable with some physical contact.
Yeah, and how did you get comfortable with physical contact with the other members of the group?
It won't mean anything to anyone else, but by fucking the box.
Right. Okay.
We all made love to the set because they had a beautiful set for that one. And once you've shared that passion with a group of people, you're bonded for life. Snort. Go on.
Yeah, that is
snort now and we can finish.
That's snort worthy, but
no, you just we did a lot of warm ups that were designed to increase the connection to each other.
Yes.
And no, we didn't like go around rubbing up against each other.
Because I've been caught out like that before on this podcast. I go, what? Really? Oh no, that's just you winding me up.
Who dared wind you up? Who dared do a bit with you on a
everyone? I'm so like, oh yeah, really? Oh, yeah, wow, that sounds amazing. And just the images you filled my head with, then I'm going to take them away.
But yeah, being comfortable with physical contact, like, never been an issue for me. Touch me wherever you want, but it's something you have to be aware of when you're working with improvisers. You don't know that people are sensitive about different things.
Yes.
And it's not bad improv, it's just bad human beinging to start going and molesting people on stage.
Yes, that would be wrong. We're against that.
Yeah.
Unless you know that person and you trust that person, and even then I don't know.
It's Phil Dunn, you can get away with it.
He doesn't mind.
He doesn't mind.
He quite likes it. Wish I hadn't said that.
Stuart said many times he doesn't edit. Now he wishes he did.
It takes too long to edit, and also, and this is a thing that I get from Richard Herring and his podcasts. Sometimes the bits that don't work are kind of quite interesting, and you just have to sort of push through them, and then suddenly you'll get a bit that does work.
Yes.
Yes. So you were doing the Wednesday night classes, and then the Nursery Originals came up.
Yeah.
And what made you think you had a chance?
Well, that was serendipitous. I don't think I would have had a chance if I guess Jules was up in Edinburgh.
Right, yes.
And Chris Mead was covering his lessons.
Oh, yes.
So, you know, you have this extended audition of 4 weeks worth of workshops.
And they were amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal teacher. Beyond being an incredible improviser, go and see all of his things. But yeah, so just having the opportunity to work with Chris over those 4 weeks, I think you find an opportunity to show off what you can do.
Yes.
And I think it came up as a conversation. I don't know how much it counted for it, but because of the fact that I'd done actor training and a lot of performing, there was a level of there's a bunch of stuff on stage I don't need to worry about.
Yes.
Because I'm just used to doing it.
Yes.
That meant I don't. If I had to worry about acting at the same time as worrying about all of the other stuff that is in play when you're improvising, I'd melt. I'd fall apart. So the fact that I do have some kind of practice at, you know, pointing in the right direction and speaking loud enough and all of those things that I didn't realise my training had that benefit, but you get to that point and go, oh yeah, okay, I'm.
So which is the right direction to point?
To the people.
Oh right. Good.
Generally,
yeah.
But you know, it's acting. Point anywhere.
Really.
As long as you're projecting to the people.
The pointing is an important part of.
Yeah.
Of
Face the people.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm really interested in that because I don't have an acting background.
Yeah.
So there is part of me that thinks, oh, that would be really useful because there must be tools like that, you know, that I just don't have. And I'd really like to be able to bring that aspect to my improvisation.
Yeah.
Because I can't do that thing where you walk on and then you say something funny and then the other person walks on and they say something funny and then they leave.
Yeah, no, I can't do that either.
No.
So thank God I know which way to face.
Yes.
No, it's just practice. It for me, it felt like it ends up being just the fact that I've practiced it.
Yeah.
Or had the opportunity to practice it because I did a silly degree that involved sword fighting and historical dance.
You see the life choices I've not made.
Yeah, yeah, you could. Okay, here's the secret to historical dance. Learned over 3 years of BA Ons acting, for what that's worth, degree. You hold hands and you snake around the room. That's pretty much it. That's all I remember. It's all I think I ever did. That's pretty much it. Sword fighting, badass. Everyone should go and take, like, if there's a sword fighting drop in that somebody does, go to that because it's wicked.
Yeah.
But yeah, the getting an opportunity to do as many plays as you possibly can becomes the kind of foundation of that practice.
Yes.
And yeah, I kind of have that under my belt now.
Yeah.
So I can do the other, try and work out the other fun stuff. Let that occupy more of what I'm doing.
I mean, and that's one of the reassuring things that I've thought about. It's like you see these people improvise and you think, wow, they're like amazing. And then you've got to remind yourself, they've probably been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you know, they were probably amazing to start with, but also they've got 10 years of, you know, being amazing.
Yeah, what's the number? Is it 10,000 hours?
Yeah, it's the Malcolm Gladwell thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've done my 10,000 hours of standing in the right direction. I've just got notch up the flight time on improvising until we can all be amazing.
So, are you? How much spare brain power do you have to plan when you're improvising?
In performance,
Yeah.
So I kind of approached it when I came into it, not knowing, like, although I'd done short form before, not really knowing what I was going into, and so it's kind of been bouncing around. What is my process as an improviser, and the work that I love seeing and trying to do requires an absolute lack of brain power.
Right.
I like the spontaneous creation element of it more than I like the funny bit of it.
Right.
And in that sense, I love, weird dance improv and the non, just the expressive elements of some of it, where the let's all be an orchestra rather than let's all do a scene.
Right.
There are these kind of crucial elements to all of the improvisation that you get to do that tap into the same thing, and it's kind of a truthfulness under whatever circumstance you're in, whether that's you're a bunch of moving bodies or you're doing a Harold or whatever.
Yeah.
This kind of essential truth of a moment becomes what's interesting for me. The fight existing in that moment and being able to both accept the impulse you're having and respond truthfully to it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that is really fun to be in.
Yes.
And that doesn't require, actively doesn't encourage planning. It encourages all eyes and ears.
Yes.
And senses and being alert and open. And kind of how you mould that into improv that someone would want to watch, that's up to you and your audience. As an improviser, I don't massively care.
Right.
Because I don't do a lot of performing.
Right.
I'm more interested in that, for me, more interested in hunting that moment. But at the same time, when you're with a group of people who enjoy each other's company and you make each other laugh, then that's a wave to ride too.
Yes. Yes. Weird dance improv. What do you mean by weird dance improv?
Like improv that's not spoken, that's movement.
Oh, right, yeah.
Contact improvisation, wonderful.
I've never done that. Oh, what's that like?
That's where it's brave.
Yeah.
It involves exactly the same thing as it would, but as it would to a normal improviser, but the impulses you're following and the things you're listening for are physically communicated to you from the other person.
Right.
So the force and tempo and the other person's body becomes what you're listening to, and you're not necessarily listening with your brain for thought and idea. You're listening with your senses for something else. It's not. It's up there on the wanky shit scale of things like.
Which we love on this podcast.
Oh, yeah, but that's I love it. I love it because it's an exploratory process and it's not necessarily for the audience. It's like have you ever heard of viewpoints?
No.
So viewpoints as an actor training methodology originated as a system whereby an ensemble can develop a vocabulary within which they can physically improvised movement.
Right.
And developed from that by a lady called Anne Bogart into a system whereby that improvisation became actor training and the things you were listening for became more complex. So what it did is it breaks down movement, for one, into singular elements and explores those elements singly. So tempo, the speed at which a movement happens, and just spend some time exploring fast and slow within a context where fast and slow is the only thing we're listening for, and how does that affect us? And then once we've had a play with fast and slow, we might look at duration, how long a movement takes, and the effect of that, whether something is direct or indirect. And once you've identified how to listen for the effect that that has on you, you start to respond to the impulse that it generates. And so nothing happens for you that is not generated by the other person's action.
Wow.
And that is very much an improvisational concept.
Yeah.
And Dave Rosowski uses viewpoints as a reference to a lot of his work, where particular bodies in space, the distance I am from you, becomes a signifier
Right.
of our relationship that I'm listening for, and that listening generates an impulse, and that impulse is followed so that I respond to you.
Yeah.
That response is what you're listening for, but also everything else, the distance we are, the volume of my response, when you start moving into acting, the emotional resonance, how I've said it, all of these things that are solid, actual things, kind of measurable in that moment, that you can take in and respond to as truthfully as you can.
Wow.
That was a lot of talking, and it's probably all bullshit. So fact checkers, come back. The Viewpoints book, and Bogart. She's wonderful. She runs a company in New York called City, SITI.
Cool. I will have to check that out. That sounds really interesting.
That you have a look after.
Thank you very much.
But that's one of the course I ended up on when I quit my job is a course in actor training and coaching.
Brilliant.
So not acting, but teaching actors.
Right.
And like I said before, there's not really a system of actor training that doesn't somewhere use improvisation. But there's for me a small division between improvisation as creation and improvisation as discovery. So if I'm a performer and I have a scene, or we're performers and we have a scene, we might use improvisational techniques to discover truths about the scene, things that are not labelled but that we have chosen to explore. We're not building material, we're not creating something, and we're not obligated to use what we've created,
Right.
but we're using it rather to discover. And for actors, can be immensely revealing, depending on the methodology you're using and its appropriateness to how you like to work. For, I think, was it Sarah's was talking about, improvisation to check in with yourself.
Yes.
Is improv therapy? Absolutely.
Yes.
Is improv counselling? Probably not.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's an interesting distinction. Yes.
Yeah. Like Jules said it as well. We do work on ourselves when we improvise, because if we're open to discovery of truthful response or any response, and just being able to acknowledge, okay, that happened. We learn about ourselves and about other people.
Yes.
So that kind of outside of actor training, there's work that goes on in discovery that doesn't actually require you to consider kind of performance or product. And for me personally, just because of my journey at the moment, I'm really interested in what improv does for people in that under those circumstances, in that condition.
Right.
Where what can we discover outside of what we already know by opening ourselves out to circumstances that we would not necessarily be in were it not for improv. I'm going to throw another one at you. Have you ever heard of forum theatre?
No, I haven't. No.
So forum theatre is it's a method of theatre that is used to explore social issues.
Oh, right.
So it was developed in South America by a guy called Augusto Boal, and what he would do is he would take groups of people who were in some way oppressed, and with an awareness that their oppression might be a result of a lack of awareness that they're oppressed, or a lack of understanding of what they can do about being oppressed. He would take non-actors mixed with actors, and he would create these scenes where he'd go, okay, your slum landlord is extorting rent out of you, and you don't know how to handle that. So what we'll do is we'll create that situation and improvise within it, and then when we get to the point at which you go, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do here or what my options are, we'll just throw out some options.
Wow.
And we'll play through those situations. And so the person walks out of it going, okay, I have an understanding now that I didn't have before. I also, because of that understanding, am able to potentially have a confidence about that scenario. I've played it out. I know that the thing maybe that I was afraid of is only one possible outcome, or potentially an outcome I've invented in my head through that fear. And so we start using improv not to make interesting work, but to empower people through offering them a platform for discovery of what's out there for them.
Yes. And I suppose the parallel I would draw with that is actually just reading books. There's no just, it's reading books and placing yourself in the situations that you would not normally find yourself, and feeling empathy for those characters and understanding. Yeah. But you're just actually physically there playing out the scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and there's some wonderful playback groups that kind of doing gigs around town. Is it Days of Our Lives? Or Plays of Our Lives. Yes. That do some stuff over in East London. And yeah, just kind of playing out these scenarios where it's not how do we discover who, what, where. It's this is the who, what, where.
Yes.
Let's play this out, and then
Yes.
actually kind of adding into that. Okay, so you had this row with your mum. Let's give you the opportunity to see this from her perspective slightly differently, or give a different response on your part, you know, and then you can go home and call your mum and not be estranged anymore. Would be an over dramatic version of it. No. But it's, you know, it has that potential to inform us about ourselves if we're listening.
Yes, and I've experienced that in one of Katie Schute's singing classes, where we did this exercise where we had, I told a story about a time I'd hitched to Paris when I was a student, and then Piotr and Fran and Jason, one was past, one was present, and one was future, and then they all sang a song from my perspective about something I'd done in, you know, the early 90s. And I was like, it was really touching, and I was like, wow, that's, you know, I don't know, you've revealed things about that experience that I hadn't really realised.
Or wasn't prepared to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yes, also that as well. So yeah, it's a really powerful thing.
Yeah. So I can't remember kind of how we got down that road, but yeah, the idea of using improv as a discovery tool was, I think, it.
Yes. As opposed to a creation.
As opposed to making things directly, or making things being the product of improv. Yeah, and I could talk for quite a while on the various delights of different actor trainers, but it's not interesting for everyone.
Well, I would be quite happy to hear you do that, but we might save that for another time.
Save that for the actor training podcast that I'll set up. Yeah.
Yes, you should do an actor I'd really listen to that. You should really do that. I would really, really listen to that. Or
talk to people about contact improv.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Or my other idea is that the next generation of this podcast is to actually do things that are more about subjects.
Yeah.
And you could actually do, it would be kind of educational.
Like a
actor studio. Or...
Like a Wunderkammer, where you find out about...
Yes.
Do we need to put Wunderkammer in the show notes? They've got a gig coming up.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. The more things you can mention.
Do not adjust your stage. The Edric Theatre, probably. Whenever they are, because I don't know when this is likely to go out. If at all.
No, this is definitely going out.
I love that as a format and as a gig. The kind of combination of experts and improv is brilliant. Apart from the fact that so many improvisers are like supremely clever. I've met more PhDs in drop-in workshops than I have in my life before that. There's some really smart cookies improvising in London.
Yes.
So yeah, having some of them talk about their speciality, which is, you know, it's never improv. It's computer science, artificial intelligence, craziness.
Yes.
Is fascinating, because anyone who's super clever in anything can kind of make me interested in it.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Last question. It's kind of a broad one. What advice?
Oh, don't
ask
me to give advice.
No.
Unless it's what advice have I been given?
Yes. That's advice. I'm programmed, as I've said many times. I'm programmed to say yes. So
yeah. What's the golden bit of improv advice? Yeah. For me,
yeah,
it's always been don't listen to yourself, listen to the other guy or girl. Sorry, heteronormative assumption. Listen to the other person because they've got the answer, you really haven't. And that's generally applied to within scenes or outside of scenes or life. I'm probably wrong and they're probably right has served me better than the other way around.
That's brilliant.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, thanks for coming over.
No, it's anytime. Do sometimes normally leave it running in case there's any comedy gold, any nuggets left over, but I will cut this bit out if there are.
I've got no nuggets.
Good. Okay. We'll stop.
I've got a library of bizarre. If you want to talk Michael Chekhov for an hour, we can do that one. If you want to talk Sanford Meisner. The Viewpoint is really interesting as an acting technique, and like the Dave Rosowski class that included it did some heavy duty work for some people.
Yeah.
The worst thing about any like brilliant improv class I've ever taken from genius improvisers and genius teachers is you walk away going, oh yeah, that incredibly simple thing that should have always been obvious from the start and that I know and you know and we all know is so obvious, I should be doing that. It's execution suddenly becomes a different matter. Oh, you mean I should just chill out and do improv as the best tool tip for improv is like the whole of Dave's class was like, oh yeah, listen to the other person and kind of register how they're feeling and respond to it truthfully. And, oh yeah, of course, it's straightforward.
Yeah,
but becomes supremely tough to do.
Also, just because something's straightforward doesn't mean that you naturally know it, and just having the obvious pointed out is, it can be a powerful thing.
You spend so much time not realising you've got to get out of your own way in that respect. Like we were saying about the knowing which direction to face on stage as a thing that if you haven't got that out of your way really gets in your way.
Yeah.
Because you've always got this thing in your head occupying a space going, there's an audience. Can they hear me? Can they hear me? Can they hear me? And once you've started, you've clocked your hours and you're embodying all of that stuff without worrying about it. It's not that you're better at anything, but you're not making yourself worse at anything. There you go.
The wise words.
Yeah.
Wise words. Thank you very much. I will stop it now.
I made this.
Call to action time. You can follow Improv London at Improv London on Twitter. See you next week.
That's improv!